What's up, everybody? It is Casey with Two Worlds Podcast, and with me, as always, it's the Windy to my Dave Thomas. It's Jake. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, but I don't get that at all.
Windy was Windy, and Dave Thomas is Windy's father from Wendy's. That's on the TV right now.
You're weird.
We're in Chicago, aka the Wendy's City.
No, dude. The windy city, like wind, like blowing wind.
That explains the wind and why I haven't seen a single Wendy's. Shoot. We need to redo this opening. Oh well. C2E2 day one is over. We did not take any video like we had planned. But we got some stuff.
By the way, we have press passes, by the way, like professionals here.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna give us any back unless we do something tomorrow.
Yeah, agreed. But we got some cool stuff signed. We bought some cool stuff. So
You wanna hold on to the microphone while I show off what my wares?
yes.
Actually, I cleaned up a little bit more than you as far as like getting stuff, so I'll save my stuff for last since it's like kind of shot my load. So I'll let Jake go first so that he can kind of show off his load basically.
Phrasing. But yeah, so I bought nothing for myself, did I? I think I just bought Preston a comic.
Okay.
Yeah, so one thing I bought was a comic that Preston needed for his Hellblazer collection because I'm a good friend. And otherwise, I did a lot of standing in line for signatures today. Got signatures from Daniel Warren Johnson. I took 2 issues of Beta Ray Bill, the A cover and the 1 in 25, and had him sign those. We talked to him for a minute. He is a super cool dude. I asked him if he had any plans to do more Beta Ray Bill, and he said he would like to, but doesn't know if Marvel will let him. But hopefully they do. And then I also stood in line for Jenny Friesen. And at this point, you've all seen the Instagram where I posted those covers with Jenny's signatures on them. Got some Wonder Woman, Poison Ivy, and Red Sonja. And yeah, I think tomorrow I'm going to try for Dan Mora if the line isn't too insane. And really nothing should be too insane compared to the last time we came here because Casey and I waited for Marv Wolfman and George Perez for 8 hours. And I'm not exaggerating. We stood in line for 8 hours.
I did. I saved your comics. And I was like, go live your life, son.
Well, but what did I do at that time? I went and stood in another line for a signature. So so yeah, anyway, that's the plan for tomorrow. And then we're gonna potentially be a part of a Kevin Eastman interview tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there. We were invited to do that because professionals. And yeah, so now I'm going to hand it over to Casey, who actually, as he loves to say tonight, shot his load and bought some stuff.
Well, I say shot my load because I bought a lot of stuff. I'll start off like I got like autographs, like Higgins autograph, some stuff for me. I'll show off a few other ones. No, it's fine. I got some other stuff like some Art Adams autographs, some like from some of my Godzillas, and then my 8 Billion Genies autographed. Now, I mentioned how I love this weird run of Fantastic Four, and so I've got 304 from it. Not just that one. 305. 307. 308. You didn't see that one. 308. 309. 311. 313. 318. 321. 322. 323. This one's gonna jump up in price because he's back. Kang the Conqueror. It's gonna be $1 million book. Then 324, 325, 326, and you guessed it, 327, 329, 331, and then an annual. Then I got some like odds and ends Godzilla ones. I'm pretty sure I don't have these. I have like one of like a couple of the ones from this run, but and I have the trade already. But the art in it's so good, and it's just a fun read to have. And they were cheap, so I was like, might as well. And then I finished up my Godzilla King of the Monsters Dark Horse stuff, and then I got this autographed. And then the big thing, when I was looking for comics, I saw at this thing that I bought comics from. I was like, could it be? So I had to go in. I had to walk in there, and like behind a bunch of shit, they had not one, not two, not three, not five, but four Godzilla Trendmaster 2-packs in card, dang near mint card. I'd say like there, a little bit of wear and tear on it, but like this is amazing. And so like it was hilarious because I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna try too hard to get them right now. Like I want them, but I asked the price the guys said, and I was like, I don't know. Like I was really thinking about it. I would have probably paid full price. So if you're listening to it, you fool. But I was like really thinking about it, and I was just gonna like, I'll come back the last day. And then he's like, well, how about this? And he like cuts a bunch off, and I'm like, it's like if you get all of them, which is like I'm not leaving without all of them. So then I'm like, maybe. And then like I had him knock $5 more off, and I was like, ha, sold, fool. And so that's basically what I shot my wad on. I might be getting a tattoo tomorrow, depending on different things. So we'll see about that too. But and then I don't know about this Eastman thing. I don't know. It's like a round table interview. If you haven't noticed from listening to us, we're not very professional. But we'll see and try our best on that.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, it's a cool thing to say we did.
Yeah, for sure. And we could put special guest Kevin Eastman.
I wonder if they'll let us record anything.
I think they have to. I think that's part of it, isn't it?
Don't know.
We'll find out.
We've never done it.
Yeah.
So what are you most anticipating for tomorrow?
Looking at more stuff. I gotta get Bria's shirt. Yeah, that's about it. It's just gonna be looking at stuff, enjoying it a little bit more instead of having like things to do, and then maybe find some more Trendmaster. I doubt I'm gonna find anything else Trendmaster like that's in box anyway. I might still get that micro set, but that's a Sunday buy because I'm like $15, please, and they'll say no. I'm like, okay, 35 it is.
Oh, I did buy something for myself. I bought Pokemon cards.
Oh yeah, you did.
I found a booth that was selling singles, so I got a couple of cards for my lady. So yeah.
Does your lady have like which one, like what'd you get her that she was like, oh, this is my favorite?
So she likes all the evolutions. So I got 1 Eevee and 2 Leafeon cards.
Nice. You should get a picture with the Eevee ladies, just all of them, like their arms around you, like, look what I found, honey. Can I bring them home?
I'm not gonna do that.
For just so you can get context, there was Playboy Bunny inspired evolution ladies here that were all together. So I'm like, this would be funny, but Jake didn't find it funny. But I think that wraps up our day one. We're gonna try to interview some people. We'll see. Just gonna play it by ear. What's up, everybody? It is Casey with Two Worlds Podcast, and with me, as always, it's the day 2 to my C2E2 coverage. It's Jake. How you doing, buddy?
I'm okay. That was weird.
I mean, it usually is. So, tell me about your day.
We had a pretty cool opportunity this morning before the doors opened to the convention to be a part of a roundtable press conference type thing with Mr. Kevin Eastman, who co-created the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
It was kind of funny because they asked us via email if we want to do that. Me and Jake both were like, Jake brought it up to me. I was like, I think that'd be awesome. Then we're also like, how do you do this? So I was a little worried about it, and Jake was too, because we're a couple of anxious millennials. And then when we get there, Kevin Eastman's like, how do you do this? So that was like, oh, that's not too bad. And then Jake actually recorded the audio from it because he's a smart boy. And so we're gonna play that right here.
Sounds good to me. All right.
Welcome to C2E2. I've been back to Chicago in a long time. It's great to be here.
So when's the last time you were at C2E2?
Never.
You've never done it?
No, it's been a while since I've been to Chicago, and it's been, we've done shows all around the kind of Midwest. Some in Michigan, some in Indiana, here, there. But the last time I was in Chicago proper was when whatever the show was before C2E2. Chicago Comic Con.
Wizard World, maybe?
Yeah.
So
So but yeah, it's nice to be back because it's we do our convention schedules arranged by invitation. So my wife organizes everything on that end. Is different people invite us and we put them on the calendar. We try to get in 10 to 12 shows a year, and glad this one came up and it worked out. So nice to be back here.
So many, many years ago, not to age you, but many, many years ago when you initially conceptualized the Turtles, I'm curious which one you kind of put together first and got their personality and their weapon.
The one we put together first was Michelangelo before it was named Michelangelo. That was the first turtle standing upright, mask on, nunchuck strapped to his arms, and that's what inspired Pete to do a drawing. He changed some things, and then I did a pencil drawing of 4, all with different weapons, and had this comic logo that said Ninja Turtles. And when Pete inked it in, he added Teenage Mutant, and that's where we arrived at the 4 characters. And then that was November of '84, and then November of '83, and then we started working on the series through the rest of '83 into '84.
You're aging yourself now.
Oh, I'm 60. Turtles are going to be 40 years old next year, so age is just a number.
Sorry, no, didn't.
Oh no, go ahead. So what we'll do is you asked another question. We'll just keep going around.
Yeah,
so
I was going to
everybody
ask
gets
my
it.
last one.
No worries.
My last one, just to kind of clarify on some of the myth that there's a connection to Daredevil, and that you guys had created, obviously Splinter base a stick, there's the Foot Clan and the hand. How did that come about?
That was my idea, in that when I grew up, I was a huge fan of Daredevil, and it's kind of comic characters I really gravitated towards were the more grounded ones, if you will. So it was like Batman, Daredevil, Captain America, and stuff. And Daredevil in particular was one of my all-time favorites. So with the Daredevil origin, when they set up how young Matt Murdock saved a blind person walking into a street as a truck carrying nuclear waste was barreling through the streets of New York, as they often do. And the truck put on its brakes, the canister came loose and struck him near the eyes. And they never said, what's that?
Dripped into the sewer.
Well, they never said, in the Daredevil origin, they never said what happened to the canister afterwards. So I just had to continue bouncing down the street, and this poor young man was standing next to a open sewer cover holding a glass terrarium with 4 turtles in it.
All right.
Canister hits that, smashes.
I appreciate you taking the time to answer those questions.
My pleasure. It's great to be here with you all. So we'll continue around. Everybody hit a few questions, and then
And if
we'll do as
anybody
many as we
needs to
can until they
switch,
throw us out.
like if you need to switch if you have a phone, just let me know and I can change seats.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've been loving The Last Ronin.
Thank you.
And you've introduced, like in The Last Ronin 2, you've introduced the new Turtles. Is there like after this series is done, you can try to keep going with them or anything that way?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It was something that we didn't intend to initially, based on the original idea that Pete and I wrote for Last Ronin in 1987. And when Tom and I adapted it and expanded it, and what became the graphic novel that came out last year, the series, and the graphic novel that came out, as we started getting into issue 1, we fell in love with the Roninverse, we call it, rather quickly. And so we had this idea of continuing to have adventures in, every character has a multiverse these days. In fact, even, it's existed long before the Turtles, and back in the day we had Turtles Black and White comics as one universe. We had the animated series as another universe, the cartoons and the movies, which are almost a separate universe. So as part of the multiverse of the Turtles, we wanted to keep going and tell stories in that area. And so we came up with this idea to create more turtles, 4 new turtles, 2 males, 2 females. And right now we just finished writing what will be called Re-Evolution when it comes out, but it'll be Last Ronin Part 2. So it'll come out later this year.
Awesome.
Yeah, so right now we're doing, Lost Years. And Lost Years was it's a really fun series that covers within that Roninverse the period where Michelangelo goes to Japan in issue 4, finds out what happened to Splinter and Donatello, and just starts walking. And it's a 16-year journey, which brings him back to Last Ronin issue 1. And so that's the Lost Years. So that's the sort of the prequel part of Lost Years, and then the sequel part of Lost Years is because each issue takes place 3 years apart. So we're seeing the new Turtles at age 3 in issue 1, age 6 in issue 2, age 9, and so by the time we get to issue 5, they'll be 15 years old, and that'll take us right into Last Ronin 2.
Oh, perfect. So, that's exciting.
It's very exciting. We're having a really, really good time, and that's, the greatest part I like about working with the team I have, Tom Waltz in particular, is all story first, and we took about 6 months, 7 months just to make sure we saw the story we like for that one. So, hope you like it.
Oh, I'm loving it so far.
Thank you. Sir.
All right, so are there any characters that you may have fleshed out a bit over the years but never got to use? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about them?
There's the lesser-known Picasso turtle, kind of the deranged cousin that we never... No, there's... No, what was really fun about the early development of the Turtles is one of the first licenses we did before any cartoons or any toys was he did the role-playing game, which was in 1985. And the coolest part about the role-playing game is we needed to develop all kinds of characters for the gameplay. So there was all kinds of different mutants, everything from Bebop and Rocksteady in the earliest stages to a lot of other characters that and then populated the ongoing Turtle series as well as some of the cartoon shows and things like that. And there were a couple in there that I really liked that we never got to explore. And I think the main one was mainly because we thought we'd get our butt suit off was in the first role-playing game we had a cast of characters called the Terror Bears, which is basically the Care Bears, but with little horror images. So we never pursued that one, but I thought that would be a fun one.
Awesome.
It's still in the game, I know it's.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
First off, 9-year-old me wants to thank you for your creation.
Thank you.
I mean, seriously, it meant the world. It was the last toy that I got into as a child. So it went from Transformers to Turtles, and that was it. So my parents, they don't want to thank you because they had to buy every toy for me. So they're still a little bit upset with you. C2E2, I'm talking with my friends, and of course, Turtles come up in the hotel room as we're having a few beers. And we're talking about like the new Rogan movie coming out, and we're like, we're excited for it, but we're like, man, that's for the kids. Like, what about us adults? And so we're like, man, is there any plans for like like The Last Ronin, either live action or animated? Or like, man, Netflix, like, I would love to see this adapted. Like, it's a great story, and I know, like, if the story's good enough, it's gonna sell the books too. Sure. I mean, you look at what's happened with The Boys, and it's just like that's blown up.
Serious,
and James Gunn can mention any movie that he's making, and then all of a sudden they sell out of the trade paperback. So, I mean, I think that it would be fantastic to see it live action or animated.
Thank you. No, it's funny and it comes up a lot, especially the a lot of the fans that come through my line are around your age that grew up on the Turtles. So I make sure to say thank you. I say thank you, and then if your parents are still with us, thank them, because back in the early days of doing signings, it would be the 8 or 9 year old you and a very disgruntled parent behind there going, you know how much money I spent on those stupid Ninja Turtles, or spent a Christmas Eve trying to put together the sewer playset, keep that blimp inflated.
My dad wanted to pop that blimp.
And stepped on Leonardo's sword on the way to the restroom. Anyway, but no, so thank them, please, and thank you. And it was just interesting that just last Friday they announced that Last Ronin video game that they've been working on.
RPG?
No, a full-on console game.
Okay.
Probably yeah. So they've been talking about they really fell in love with Last Ronin, and again embracing the multiverse of Turtles. Like Seth Rogen's been working for almost 3 years now on his younger version of the Turtles, which looks really funny, by the way. I've not seen much of it, and I'm excited to sit in the theater and see it for the first time. But it looks great. But they didn't want to, as they sort of put everything into that concept. They didn't want to confuse it and start something with Last Ronin too, because it's pretty edgy. So I think they felt the best way to move forward with it was as a game and embrace the fan base that way. So
We're gonna keep our fingers crossed, though.
hopefully it'll still. I get Robert Rodriguez or somebody to do it. But thank you. Hi.
So we do a lot of comics, but we also do more movies than comics.
Yeah.
So our audience is nuts.
Yes.
So with the upcoming movie, which audience would be more or would enjoy it more? Would it be the comic audience or the movie-going audience?
It's. I'm glad you brought it because it is very specific. And even our son Shane, is a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but has never read any of the comics. And our house is, as you can imagine, filled to the floor to ceiling in every room with comics and graphic novels. And Dad, Thanos this and Thanos that, and I go, you want to read the original Jim Stalin? No. But I think it's what I found in this time is this kind of concept. It's a little of both, in that you have some fans that have only seen the movies and will see it for that. But it is the original fan base, and it's a very precious fan base, because if there's a misstep too far to the left or right, like the Michael Bay movies weren't quite what they, in my opinion, what they could have been or should have been. They didn't embrace enough of the concept of what made the Turtles, what we liked about the Turtles and what you liked about the Turtles. They were they're Peter Parker and mutations, and so I think that's going to be a little bit of both, because they want to protect their childhood, they want to enjoy it, they want to be entertained, and so I think that with this one they will, but it'll be a foot in both worlds. Good question.
Okay.
You talked a little bit about the new 4 Turtles that are coming up in the last years that we're seeing come up. The original 4 are so iconic at this point.
Yes.
Like, did you feel any pressure as you were like, we're gonna replace them with this new generation, or like, just how did you go about developing those characters?
I'm still sweating, so. No, it's it was a very delicate thing, and it had to approach it very carefully, in that you don't want to force it, and that was one of the things. Like, I mentioned Tom Waltz, and Tom and I wrote and worked on 100 issues of the Turtles at IDW from 2011 to 21, and then still involved in that and all things in the Turtles comic universe. And then we teamed up on Last Ronin, and just the concept of approaching how to kill your original characters, and we killed in the flashbacks of how we needed their situations resolved in Last Ronin, all of them, to make it to have the world continue on. So in thinking about the Turtles, it was you immediately go to Planet Stupid, which is like, oh, we'll name them after famous scientists or famous rock stars or something, or there'll be this, and that's when you start crossing all that stuff off the list early, and we talk about it a lot, and we let the story naturally evolve of what kind of personalities they would be. We decided to make them different species of turtles, so they would have stronger and more distinct personalities. We wanted 2 male, 2 female. and their attributes would be more in their isms, because it's still set in 2055-ish. So the kinds of things that they're going to be used to and acclimated to in not stereotypical form of a personality, but those still personalities will be strong. Things like the names, when we arrived at the names, it was something that, again, we talked about for months, and you couldn't force it. And what I loved is that Casey Marie, the daughter of Casey Jones and April, is been given Splinter's Journal. She's training the turtles to be ninjas and all things. And she ends up naming them, and it wasn't just made up names like, oh, Bob or Susan. She wanted them to be special and embrace each of them, and so each of the turtles' name is number one in a different language. So Odin is Ukrainian/Russian for number one. Uno, Moja is Swahili, I think, for number one. It's South African. Yi is Chinese for number one. So she basically tells them, you're all number one in my heart. So she names them all number one. So that was months of thinking, and we feel, you get goosebumps. You go, okay, we have it, because it's justified and it works and it makes sense and it works as a story. And that's what we'll build off, because we're figuring out the personalities and figuring them out as we move forward. So, yes,
Great.
Thank you.
So the last few years, there seems to have been an increase in the desire for nostalgia, the nostalgia of youth, the nostalgia of what was, and that is part and parcel because of the pandemic, because we were all indoors, and so we were going back to the things that we loved that made our childhood sparkle. Candy was better, toys were better, cartoons were amazing. Was the timing of the release of Last Ronin purposeful, or did it just happen to be this is the way the pendulum fell? And what are your thoughts on that renewed interest in the nostalgia, especially with fresh audiences finding the Turtles within the comics and the movie coming out and the game?
Yeah, no, great question. And the timing was just, honestly, just complete happenstance. It was just an accident that Peter and I did the original 25-page outline of the concept of became Last Ronin. It was done in 1987, and it was set in 30 years in the future. And when Tom and I were, and the reason we came up with that concept was we had just finished issue 11, and it was wrapping up a big story arc. And so we were like, okay, where do we go from here? And so we said, well, let's set up a story that's 30 years in the future, kind of be a lighthouse to navigate towards the final turtle story. But then we never got to it. That year is when the toys started developing, the animated series started developing, and just got pushed aside, and was never addressed. And so as Tom and I were heading towards issue 100, we arrived at the same situation. Well, we're at issue 100, we wrapped up a 100-issue storyline. Where do we go from here? And that's when I dusted it out. And it was already 2018, so it was a year past the original when the original story was set. And that's what we then adapted it. So the timing was just naturally, we just evolved as it evolved. But the nostalgia thing is very curious, because I do think it is in part because of some of the pandemic. I think we were shut in. We were reading old books or comics or watching old movies, or just very concerned about what the future is going to be, and remember the happiest times in the past to get us through some of these difficult times. But I've been lucky in that a lot of the shows that my wife and I do all over the world, and we're so grateful to be able to do that, is that most of the people in our line are the original 8, 9, 10-year-old young people that enjoyed them initially, and we've had everything from bringing up dog-eared, chewed-up toys that they have you sign, which is the coolest thing ever, to beat-up comic books that the staples aren't even really holding together. And what's even more mind-blowing is when they come up with their kids who have discovered the Turtles, because I always say you can't tell a child what's cool and what's not. And the fact that the kids have found something in the Turtles that they love and embrace is like mind-blowing. It's pretty amazing. So it's 40 years next year, and I'm still doing it. It's crazy. Thank you. Yes.
When doing crossover series such as like the one with Batman and Power Rangers and stuff, like how much input do you actually have? And also, what crossover would you like to do that hasn't been done yet?
Great question. And some of it's more and some of it's less. And for example, when Tom and I worked on the Ghostbuster Turtle crossover, we were more involved in that. I was a huge Ghostbuster fan. was really fun. With the Batman series, I'd actually pitched DC. I have a childhood. Somebody's at my door.
I just got the same notification.
Jesus that's too funny. With the Batman Turtle crossover, I'd actually pitched another idea to them. I like this character, DC Jack Kirby character named Commandy. And they said, well, nobody knows what Commandy is. Why don't you do Turtles Batman? And we didn't know that was on the table, and they brought in the most incredible James Tinian, who wrote it, and he's such a fantastic writer.
He's great.
Something is Killing the Children. He's just mind-blowing. He just did a fantastic series, and my good friend Freddie Williams was the artist that brought up the series, and they did such a great job. It was, they did 3 series, but that was one of those big fan moments for me is I got to do the variant covers, and I didn't have any input on it. It was, it's James Tinian. I was like, he's you got it, bro. And when I was doing the cover with Turtles and Batman on the same cover, and I'm thinking they're not even going to print this. This is not really going to. But it was what a joy. And so to answer your last question is Daredevil Turtles would be the ultimate crossover.
Makes a lot of sense.
Thanks.
With Venus making her comic book appearance last year, why was that important at that time?
It was, it's something that when I worked on the original live action series that introduced the original Venus back in '97, it was an idea that started as adding a 5th turtle named Kirby in a 4th live action New Line movie that then was dropped, and then we started developing a new TV series, and it was still this 5th turtle that was sort of washed further down the sewer and that stuff, and developed that. And then at the last minute, Margaret Lesh, who was head of programming, decided to change it to. She wanted to change it to a female turtle, which huge Ripley, Sarah Connor. I love strong female characters, and so it was like, yeah, that'd be great. Peter wasn't as keen on it, so he sort of stepped away, and I worked on that series. It wasn't a huge hit with the fans, but I really liked the series. When Tom and I got into the comic book series, around the time we got to issue 50, one of the ideas that we kept coming back to is we wanted to add a female turtle to the mix. So when we introduced Jenica in issue 51, she then became, not intentionally at first, but then became a catalyst in the character that we were able to evolve into becoming Jenica in issue 95. And then Sophie Campbell, who's just a wonderful writer, an important part of the turtle history, she always loved Venus, and so she wanted to bring it back in this way that was important to the storyline, as almost like a Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas sort of creation by this kind of maniacal doctor. And so it was a neat, interesting version, and she's going to be coming back in a bunch. So, but I'm really thrilled that she found the right story to bring that character back in the way she did.
Awesome, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, neighbor.
I think we both got a pizza delivered at the same time.
First of all, again, thank you for I don't know a life. I'll be 40 next year also, so I don't know a life without Ninja Turtles. So, so this is actually really dope for me.
Thank you.
2 questions. First question is, you talked about the video games. I want to know who made this game and why did they make it so hard?
It was one of those things that I've never, to this day, I've never beat it. But it was in the early day when this first came out. Like people would literally come up to us at Pete and I at a convention and go, why did you make this game so hard? And we're like, I can't even run my VCR. But no, it was kind of a strange thing, and that was one of the first evolutions of that console, the PS1, that whole console system, where so much you couldn't save, you couldn't stop and save the game at any point. You had to start at the beginning every time, and it was like, I was so grateful when they finally came out with the arcade game, because then you could, something I could play, but then you could also play with 3 of your other friends, which was great. But they kind of, the evolution of like Turtles in Time and some of the other games that they came after was great, but man, that was a
pain in the ass.
It was a pain in the ass. It was a huge pain in the ass.
I'm glad I could personally tell you that.
It's funny, last year they came out with they call it the Cowabunga Collection, which is all the games and all the versions. And that was one of the things that the developers, when I talked to them, they said that they made it. This version is updated and it's got a save feature. So you can save it.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So not only am I a huge Ninja Turtles fan and have been since I was a kid, but also a huge Power Rangers fan. And kind of piggyback off to the crossovers, Power Rangers celebrating 30 years this year, Ninja Turtles celebrating 40, and you did the cover for the first Ninja Turtles Power Rangers crossover comic, and now you're doing all the variants for the second series with Freddie Williams. So how do you feel about that series and these two iconic, long-lasting superhero franchises coming together like this?
It's awesome. I really have been enjoying it. We actually, even going back to that original live-action Venus series, one of the specials that we did during that live-action was we did a Turtles crossover live-action version, which was really fun. But no, it's that nostalgia thing, as mentioned earlier, that it's really wonderful. Those characters are iconic, and they're we battled for ratings many years, and it was hit that same tonality that our fans love. And so the fact that you got guys like Dan Mora who's here just killing it with the artwork, and Jason. I enjoy the series very much, not only just as being a fan of both of them and seeing them together, but it amazes me that when these incredibly talented young people come up with a fresh idea and something that just you think every idea has been explored, and there's no way that they can come up with something else. They come up with something else, and it's even cooler than what they've done before. So it's really been a treat for me in doing those, and plus getting to work with Freddie on those covers is a hoop.
Yeah, very cool.
Thanks.
Just wanted to jump in real quick. We're going to give like a 5 to 8 minute warning.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Yes, because
we're going to review it all.
oh, that's right. Because I'm signing at 11, right? So thank you so much. Appreciate it. And I'm having a great time sitting with you guys. So we'll get to as many questions as we can, but thank you. Thanks.
2 quick questions. Do you have any plans for future collaboration with Stan Sakai?
Could work with Stan every day for the rest of my life. He's not only the coolest guy in comics, the nicest guy in comics, and we're doing the new series now, the Where-When story, which would be a 5-issue series. I'm doing covers for him, and he wants to do another one, but Stan also, as you know probably for sure, is Turtles issue 1 came out in May of '84, and the first appearance of Usagi was in Critters number 2 in November of '84. And I always love telling this story because that's how we first met Stan. Is we would go to conventions, and they go, "Okay, funny animal guys, we've got a couple of tables next to the bathrooms. So you guys are there." They put everybody else there, and then put us over in the corner next to like Flaming Carrot guy, and that stuff. But we had that's where we got to meet Stan and hang out, and Usagi was very early on. We did crossovers, and then we're lucky enough to bring him in to the Turtle universe, not only as a toy and cartoon, but also preserve. And we wouldn't have done it any other way, like Dave Garcia's PandaCon and other ones, that they retained full ownership. They became part of our universe and had some success in that, but they retained their own. But yeah, Stan's the great. So there's going to be more to come.
Excellent. Real quick though, Daredevil Turtle crossover, what would that look like?
I've got an idea. No joke, and it's like I'm not going to tell you, unfortunately. But no, I literally have a story idea I wrote in 1988, and it's something I want to do, and it makes sense, and it fits together, and it's one of those things that Freddie and I, because Freddie and I are really good friends, and it's funny. I love Freddie because the first time I met him, he goes, "We're going to be best friends because our birthdays are on the same day, May 30th. And as oddly enough, we turned out to be really good friends. But so we've been talking about this idea of sort of dusting off and doing it. But it's a matter of right now, we're still pretty surprised by the success of, and very grateful, as you can imagine, the success of Last Ronin and the development of, we really want to keep a focus on finishing Lost Years and then starting Last Ronin too. And that's that focus. But that's, I'm having a blast. And I got my first Daredevil cover. Did you see that?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
40 years later, the stack of rejection letters from Marvel. It's like, don't give up your day job, Marvel. But now,
job in the multiverse.
I know. See, we're gonna stay in the pizza parlor. it's been great. So,
Thank you.
thanks. Do we got time for another one or two, or
Yeah.
you gonna do this gentleman, then you? Okay. And then,
Hi, Justin, Epic Tales from the Sewers podcast.
Nice to see you.
Congratulations on
Thank
the Daredevil cover. That was what I was going to say first.
Thank you very much.
There was a series in the 90s called Legends of the Dark Knight Batman. It
Yep.
was non-canonical. It was all these little vignettes and stories, not quite in Elseworlds.
Yep.
But what about the idea for something like that with IDW, where they have, you bring in all these great artists, people like Mike Ruth or Gavin Smith, even though he's doing other stuff.
I love Gavin Smith.
And you get these guys in there to do these stories that are just small, self-contained, like Turtle Soup when that came out. Is that something that is at all on the table?
That would be something I'd love. And it is something that, because even, for Peter I in the early days, and it came out as a nice collection. And Ultimate Collection Volume 6 was all the short stories. Anytime we did a reprint of Turtles, we would include a new backup, which was some of the Mirage artists, Mike Dooney and Mark Bodie and Ryan Brown and all those guys. And I love the short story format because you could really dip into an idea and have a blast and get out quickly. And but I know that there has. We just finished an editorial session last week and talking about a number of things that we want to pursue on the publishing side, and that was one that did come up because everybody's enjoyed the success of, as I have, the Black, White, Red or Black, White, and Blood series, and they were talking about doing a Black, White, and Green maybe or something with the Turtles, but it's still. But that would be, to me, I think that it's always fun to me to see what another artist, writer sees in the characters and what they want, kind of story that they want to tell. That's inspiring, and if it's really good, I take credit for it, and if it's not.
Can you take any credit for the idea of the Stranger Things comic book that's coming up, Stranger Things crossover?
No, that was just a crazy idea that because Playmates approached us about doing a turtle package like the Cobra Kai or the Karate Kid crossover series, Cobra Kai crossover toy series. Stranger Things came out because it kind of fell in the early Stranger Things took place in '84 around that time, and so I've not seen any material on that, but I'm curious to see what it is. So I think one more, we got good, and then we might have to.
Did you really buy a cake?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
I've always wondered.
Yes.
Did you drive it?
Oh yeah. It was in short, it was I was a big fan of I liked a lot of the war comics, and when I was growing up, Sergeant Rock and Sergeant Fury, and so many of those things. And there was one called the Haunted Tank, which was this tank crew that had a M15A Stuart light tank, and so one time I was in Hollywood working on something. And this company that provides military vehicles for movies, I said, "Hey, you got a M15A Stuart light tank?" And he goes, "Yep." And I go, "You do? How much?" He goes, $35,000. And I'm like, "I'll buy it." I had turtle money at the time. So it was inserted in 1945 in World War II, and it was brought here, and it was used last used on camera in the Red Dawn movie. Ooh. The original Red Dawn movie. Go Wolverines. The original Red Dawn movie. And then, and yeah, you could drive it. It had twin Cadillac engines, and it ran like a bulldozer, you're braking treads. And I had a place in Massachusetts I used to drive around, scare the neighbors. So I know you. I promise you one last question. We'll do that, and we'll wrap up. Okay.
And actually, two quick ones.
Okay, sure.
All right, two quick ones. So it was mentioned earlier about Venus Return. Big fan of Jenica.
Thank you.
Could we perhaps be seeing more team-ups with them possibly in a book on their own sometime in the future?
There's definitely been a discussion on doing that, and I think it's just bandwidth. Not only we don't want to burden the creative people that are working on it, but also the fans. You guys are. We want to make sure that the stuff we're delivering is these comics aren't cheap these days, and it's so it's just sort of managing it that make sure one, the stories are good, and two, that it's on a fashion that it still bothers me to a certain extent. I think there's a few too many variant covers going on these days, and especially for there's people that just want the book for the book, and then there's the collectors, which we love them dearly, and it's a lot. So.
And then last one. Because we're all talking nostalgia, and I grew up on Rangers and Turtles as well. And I hope it hasn't been asked already. But have you thought about how it all ends? I am in no way advocating it. Have you thought about when I'm done, what that final battle is going to look like?
Well, the final vision I have, and I was joking with somebody about this, it's like, on my gravestone, it's going to be, you say like Cowabunga, then there'll be like a hand reaching out with a Sharpie as I'm signing my own gravestone. I'll be at a convention and I'll be like, thank you. I've got to try to meet Stan Lee. You know, Stan Lee was still doing it, what, 90?
Yeah, 95.
Anyway, but no, it's you know, it's a good question. That's a great one to end on because it's you have to go back to the concept that we never thought would sell the 3,000 copies we printed of issue 1. The fact that 40 years later, next year, May of 2024, will be 40 years that we put that first issue out, and the fact that I'm here talking to you guys about Turtles and talking about still new Turtle ideas is mind-blowing. It's quite humbling, to be honest. It's pretty awesome. It's a childhood dream, and I was drawing comics last week before I came here, and when I get home tomorrow night, I've got 2 covers due. So I'll be back on the drawing board tomorrow night.
It was humbling to meet you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you guys. So
Okay, and so that was really cool that happened. Afterwards, like kind of just shitty moment. One of the guys asked a question, was like, walked up to Kevin, and he was like, "Hey," well, first the guy asked, "Hey, can you autograph this for me?" There's my hands. "Can you autograph this for me?" And he's like, "Sure." Kevin's charging, I think, $50 for autographs. Dude didn't pay. This other dude comes up, like, "Hey, money's pretty tight right now. Can I just get a picture with you right now?" And he's like, "Sure."
It was so incredibly douchey. And one of the guys that did that was the first person to ask a question during the round table. And Kevin said, ask one question and then go to the next guy. This dude asked 3 questions in a row. And Kevin's just too damn nice to say anything about it.
Yeah, like at the second question, I'm pretty sure he was like, "Oh, well, I guess you can ask another one," but the plan was just one apiece. But what's up, everybody? It is Casey and his life mate Jake. We're mixing it up this time because it's our 3rd intro in 3 days and we're not used to it. But we're on the drive back from C2E2. We got a few little things here and there. Yeah, how was your C2E2 last day?
I mean, it was pretty chill. Let's be real, we were there for like an hour.
Yeah.
It was good. We got some fun stuff.
I'm trying to look for what I grabbed because it's like right behind me, but I just can't quite get it. But yeah, I got a graded Godzilla Dark Horse #1, a Daniel Warren Johnson quick draw, which Jake is going to put on our Instagram.
Yeah.
And then I also got, what else did I get? I got something else that was fun. Oh yeah, I got a print by, I'm blanking on the dude's name, but someone that I follow on the old Twitter. So I like that. It's an ultraman print. Looks pretty dope.
It's like Robert something the 4th.
Yes. And Jake got a bunch of Pokemon cards. So that was pretty sweet.
I did. It was kind of funny because I mentioned this to Casey earlier. We go to a comic book convention, and I think I bought more Pokemon cards than I did comic books.
Yeah, he's going to be starting up a Pokemon card cast soon, probably. I'll just bring in Yu-Gi-Oh cards to go with them.
What was your highlight of the whole trip?
Getting that Godzilla playset. I was like, that was one of the things that was on my list of things to hopefully get at G-Fest. And I knew I'd be paying probably like $100 more because G-Fest prices are stupid. So I was glad I got that. What about you?
You know, I went there to try to complete my Stephanie Brown Batgirl collection, and I got one of the 2 most expensive ones, so that was pretty good. And also, those Sonics are a nice surprise, because you just never know when you're going to find one of those. announcement interview. That was pretty darn cool. It was. I'm actually really grateful that gal from Reed Pub invited us to do that.
Yeah.
Because Kevin was great, and the experience was great, and now I feel a lot better about a roundtable interview.
Yeah, exactly. I have a feeling that the next one, if we get another one and the person's more experienced with it, it might not be near as chill as that, though.
Yeah.
That was like the perfect first time experience.
Yeah. For us and Kevin, too.
Yeah. I don't know for Kevin, because he was having to put his foot down because people just kept asking shit.
Yeah. He did it tastefully, though.
Yeah.
What was the thing we were going to bring up that I said we should talk about?
Oh, so I was on the C2E2 Facebook page, and someone was complaining because they paid $250 for a Chris Evans autograph, and they misread a part, because it said bring up to 30 things, and it says if you have a C2E2 ticket, you have to limit it to three times of getting the autograph, and they misread it as I can get 3 things autographed with this ticket for my $250, and so then they were upset that they weren't able to get 3 things autographed, and then Chris misspelled his son's name, and then they talked someone, another name of it, and then Chris Evans only talked to him for 15 seconds. It's like, well, no shit, he's gonna talk to you for 15 seconds. Like, I mean, you're paying for an autograph, not to talk to the guy. So yeah, it was pretty silly to me, and then the misspelling's kind of crappy, but like, you have to actually read the things if you really think that you can get away with getting 3 autographs from Chris Evans for $250.
Yeah. Like, I totally think that the misspelling of the name is justified, because you give him a card beforehand with the proper spelling. So if he messes that up, then yeah, that really sucks. But getting 15 seconds with your kid is not a justifiable anger thing, because I mean, you guys can imagine how many people are there to get a Chris Evans photograph or signature. Like, imagine if he was like, I'm sorry, time ran out. Like, I don't get to autograph for everybody else.
Like, spend 10 minutes with your son.
Yeah. I don't know. People are just ridiculous.
Yeah, tell us what you think about that. Do you think Chris Evans should have had lunch with everybody that bought a thing, or he should have just done 15 seconds apiece?
But overall, man, out of 10, how would you rate the 2023 C2E2?
I'm gonna go an 8, because for me, it was a little disappointing vendor-wise. I don't know about you, but it was like some of the people that came back that were really good, but then some of the toy vendors and comic vendors were kind of meh this year. And then we got a lot of like these really big tents for these products that I didn't care about. That kind of hurt it too. What about you though?
Yeah, I think 8's pretty good. I guess if you break that down, it's a B, and I think B is where it should be. I'm with you on the vendors, because I mean there were like 7 comic vendors, dedicated comic vendors, and like 3 of them were strictly high-end, out of your reach, graded books.
Yep.
And like those should be there too, but you gotta have more comics that the average person's gonna want to buy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like past years there was like 20 comic vendors, and you could really find some good deals, but that just wasn't the case this year.
Yeah, I think it hurt it a lot that way, because it was just like, and maybe they're making more money off this other stuff, but it's just, I don't know, we didn't get as much nerd stuff. Like, one of the big things that took up a lot of it, so that we didn't even look at, was like Sesame Street Robotics. And it was this giant cookie monster that had robo parts on it. It's like, I know kids come here, but come on, that can't be that big of a friggin' target, Like, so that didn't make much sense.
That took up the space of at least 4
don't think that's necessary. Yeah, for like, you know, someone that's trying to actually see stuff. But the artist alley was cool. It was a nightmare Saturday. We spent maybe 5 minutes there on Saturday. It was so packed. But yeah, it was a good time. There was lots of good creators there though. We got a lot of our stuff autographed and taken care of that way.
Yeah, going and getting almost all of that done on Friday was the play. I feel like if you're a pop or a toy guy, then this was like the best year. Because I feel like there were a lot more vendor booths with that kind of stuff than there were comics.
See, I kind of disagree though, because it felt like it felt like the same amount of pop and toy people, maybe a little bit less as far as like the kaiju stuff that I like, because like two of the guys that are always there weren't there this time. But it was like the pop is all about the same amount of stuff. It might have even been less pop, because I remember there used to be this one place that we looked at before where it was just pops, like just completely filled, and it was like rare ones that they would give from different places.
Is that where you got the Robin Hood one?
Yes, and that wasn't there this time. Like it feels like they were just trying to. There was more big shit there versus like these smaller, like, oh yeah, we need to do this stuff. Like there was 2 different Dungeons and Dragons dice things, which is like they were cool, but they took up like 3 vendor spots for it, which is crazy.
And they were exactly the same.
Yep.
It was just different vendors, same products.
Expensive too.
Yep.
Like, would you spend $40 on a set of dice? As like, because you are proper dungeon.
I mean, yes,
boy.
I would. But I wasn't there for that.
Yeah. And you were there for Pokemon cards.
I was. But I feel like that, like, you do Dragon Con in Indiana for stuff like that, because that's like a dedicated tabletop and board game convention.
Yeah.
This, it's like, I mean, between that and the damn Mecha Cookie Monster, that could have been like 5 more comic booths.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think a lot of it too is that if you think about it, this is like the first proper one post-COVID.
I mean, the first one without masks. They've done it the last 2 years, haven't they?
Yes, but neither of those had like a good guest list.
Oh, okay.
Like that one that was last summer or whatever, Artist Alley was like abysmal.
Oh, really?
So I feel like this one was the proper, like, C2E2's back to normal. And, you know, I think maybe there was just a little bit of momentum that wasn't there. And I think it'll be back to that.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. I think it's going to get next year. If they let us come back, please do. But I think it's going to get better. I think we'll be better next year at, you know, doing stuff that we wanted to do.
Yeah.
We should have done more, but, you know, whatever. You live and learn.
Right. I will say, this is on me, but that I was looking at the list of panels and realized that I missed a couple of panels that I would have liked to go to. So I think we were a little bit out of our groove as much as the con was.
Yeah, and one thing too about C2E2, they have an app that you can download and look stuff up, but their app is like one of the worst, least user-friendly apps for this type, you know, for something that needs to be user-friendly. Like you'll like want to look up artists that are going to be there, and like you'll scroll down to a certain spot, click on the artist, and then as soon as you X out of that to go back, it's like, oh yeah, you lost your spot. You have to go all the way back to the top and redo it all. It's like, this is a nightmare, guys. Come on.
Yep. And it's been that bad every year that we've used it.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean,
but we'll end on a positive. Still lots of cool stuff. All the comics I picked up, I was excited for. All the Pokemon cards I picked up, I was excited for. You know, it was still a good time. We met people there that we haven't got to meet before, like Dan Mora.
Super nice guy.
Super nice guy. And we'd met Daniel Warren Johnson before, but it was great to see him again because he's such a likable dude.
Yep.
And, you know, I got all those Jenny Friesen covers, and those are all amazing. I was so excited for that. So,
yeah, I
I got to meet Fred Van Lin, which I've loved him for so long, and I got to see him and get my stuff autographed by him. He was a very nice guy. You know, just getting the Godzillas. That's super cool. I think Jake said actually on my first Godzilla score, I got the guy in trouble because he cut me a pretty good deal.
Yeah, Casey made a deal with this guy, and the guy went and told the guy in charge of the booth, and the guy in charge was clearly not happy with that number, probably because it was day one.
Yeah,
you know.
And the funniest part is, like, I wasn't even trying. Like that, I was like, I asked for the price, they told me, and I was like, and he's just like, take $25 off of that. And I'm like, if you get all of them, like, I wasn't gonna leave with just one. And then he's like, I was like, 5 more? He's like, yeah, let's do it.
But then, yeah, I know we've already talked about it a bunch, but just the Kevin Eastman experience was super cool and definitely one of the highlights. And I hope that if we are privileged enough to get another press pass in the future, that we'll get to do some more cool stuff like that.
Yeah, and honestly, like, one of the things too is I am disappointed that I didn't get anything for him to sign. Like, looking back, like, I wish I would have, because I think it was so cool that he was there. We got to meet him. It would have been even cooler if I would have got like something autographed, you know, not for free. I would have paid for it.
Yeah.
But you know, I guess thank you C2E2 and Reed Pop and Kevin for everything. Anything else you want to know, man?
No. We hope you guys like some of the extra content from the show. You know, the stuff on Instagram, the recaps of each day. Again, let us know what you think of the Kevin Eastman roundtable interview, and you know, we'll see you next week for our regular stuff.
And we'd love to stay in chat, but I think I started this with Whitney and Dave Thomas, so you know, Jake's gotta die and I gotta be the face of a company. Hi guys.